In the next half-century or so, Christianity's long reign as the world's largest religion may come to an end, according to a just-released report that builds on Pew Research Center's original population growth projections for religious groups. Indeed, Muslims will grow more than twice as fast as the overall world population between 2015 and 2060 and, in the second half of this century, will likely surpass Christians as the world's largest religious group. While the world's population is projected to grow 32% in the coming decades, the number of Muslims is expected to increase by 70% from 1.8 billion in 2015 to nearly 3 billion in 2060. In 2015, Muslims made up 24.1% of the global population. 45 years later, they are expected to make up more than 3 in 10 of the world's people. The main reasons for Islam's growth ultimately involve simple demographics. To begin with, Muslims have more children than members of the 7 other major religious groups analyzed in the study. Muslim women have an average of 2.9 children, significantly above the next highest group and the average of all non-Muslims. In all major regions where there is a sizable Muslim population, Muslim fertility exceeds non-Muslim fertility. The growth of the Muslim population also is helped by the fact that Muslims have the youngest median age of all major religious groups, more than 7 years younger than the median age of non-Muslims. A larger share of Muslims will soon be at the point in their lives when people begin having children. This, combined with high fertility rates, will accelerate Muslim population growth. More than a third of Muslims are concentrated in Africa and the Middle East, regions that are projected to have the biggest population increases. But even within these high-growth regions, as well as others, Muslims are projected to grow faster than members of other groups. For example, Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa, on average, are younger and have higher fertility than the overall population of the region. In fact, Muslims are expected to grow as a percentage of every region except Latin America and the Caribbean, where relatively few Muslims live. The same dynamics hold true in many countries where Muslims live in large numbers alongside other religious groups. For example, India's number of Muslims is growing at a faster rate than the country's majority Hindu population and is projected to rise from 14.9% of India's 2015 population to 19.4% or 333 million people in 2060. And while there were similar numbers of Muslims and Christians in Nigeria as of 2015, Muslims have higher fertility there and are expected to grow to a solid majority of Nigeria's population, 60.5%, in 2060. Meanwhile, religious switching, which is expected to hinder the growth of Christians by an estimated 72 million between 2015 and 2060, is not expected to have a negative net impact on Muslim population growth. Muslims are the youngest major religious group in the world. They have a median age of 24. And Muslims have more children than people in any other group. About 3 children per woman who's Muslim, compared to about 2.2 children per woman who's not Muslim in the world. People of course do change religious faiths, and we have measured religious switching, but for Muslims the story as far as we can tell is really about natural increase, a lot more Muslims being born than are dying in any given year. We have studied a couple dozen Muslim majority countries, and we don't see much change in religious identity in those countries. In Egypt, for example, most people who grew up Christian retain that identity as adults, and the same for those who grew up Muslim. There are some restrictions on switching faith in Muslim majority countries. You might be stigmatized or face legal consequences for apostasy for changing faith. So that's a factor that they limit what we can capture. But the big change in terms of religious switching in the world is from people who grew up Christian to those who now identify with no religion. And that population of people who claim no religion is growing a lot through religious switching, not through fertility. Those folks tend to have fewer children than people who have a religious affiliation. Muslims are the youngest major religious group in the world. They have a median age of 24. And Muslims have more children than people in any other group. One way of thinking about it is we have this rapidly secularizing West, places like the United States and Europe, more people are becoming unaffiliated. And then we have this population of the rapidly growing rest of the world, places like Africa, where almost everyone continues to identify with a religion, and the number of people there is multiplying greatly. By 2060, 4 out of 10 of the world's Christians will live in sub-Saharan Africa, according to our projections, for example. There's a big geographic shift underway in terms of where the world's Christians live, and the population of people who are religious increasingly are living outside of Europe, North America. The Muslim population is growing in the United States. We project that by the year 2050, there will be more Muslims than Jews or Hindus or Buddhists in the US currently. About 1% of the US population is Muslim, and that's gonna increase by a couple of percentage points in the decades to come. And that's growing because Muslims in the US, like Muslims worldwide, are younger than other major religious groups and having more children, and also have been growing through immigration and, we expect, are likely to continue to do so.